June 1944. Montluçon, France, a town in central France under German occupation. The local Gestapo headquarters has been making life hell for the French resistance and the civilian population. Interrogations, torture, executions. The resistance wants revenge. Nancy Wake volunteers to lead the raid. She chooses 12:25 p.m. as the attack time. She knows the Germans, knows their routines. At 12:25, the Gestapo officers will be gathering for their precisely scheduled 12:30 lunch. Perfect timing. 4 cars pull up outside the building. Nancy Wake jumps out with a mixed force of French and Spanish resistance fighters. They burst through the doors. Grenades fly into rooms upstairs and down. Machine gun fire. 30 seconds of absolute chaos. When the smoke clears, 38 Germans are dead. Nancy and her fighters are already back in their cars, gone before German reinforcements can respond. The Gestapo is humiliated, again, by the woman they call the White Mouse, the woman with a 5 million franc bounty on her head, the woman they've been trying to catch for 4 years, and she just walked into their headquarters and killed 38 of them. This is the incredible true story of Nancy Wake, the most wanted Allied agent in France, the woman who escaped the Gestapo 6 times, the journalist who cycled 500 kilometers in 72 hours, the spy who killed a German with her bare hands. Before we dive into her incredible life, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button for more incredible World War II stories. Nancy Grace Augusta Wake was born August 30th, 1912, in Wellington, New Zealand. Her family moved to Sydney, Australia, when she was 2. Nancy grew up rebellious. At 16, she ran away from home twice. Her aunt left her £200 in a will, about $10,000 today. Nancy used it to travel, first to New York, then London. She trained as a journalist. By the early 1930s, she was working as a freelancer in Paris, living the dream, young, independent, free. In 1933, a Parisian newspaper asked her to interview Germany's new chancellor, a man named Adolf Hitler. Nancy traveled to Vienna for the assignment. What she saw there changed her life. Nazi gangs beating Jewish people in the streets. Elderly men forced to scrub sidewalks with toothbrushes while crowds laughed. Women dragged from their homes. Nancy was horrified. She later said, "I resolved there and then that if I ever had the chance, I would do anything, however big or small, stupid or dangerous, to try and make things more difficult for their rotten party." In 1937, Nancy met Henry Fiacre, a wealthy French industrialist. They married in 1939. Nancy settled into life as a socialite in Marseille, parties, opera, wealth. But when Germany invaded France in May 1940, everything changed. France surrendered in June. The country was divided. Northern France under direct German occupation. Southern France under the collaborationist Vichy government. Marseille was in the Vichy zone, technically unoccupied, but the Germans had influence everywhere. Nancy couldn't sit idle. She began working as an ambulance driver, then she joined the French resistance. Specifically, the Pat O'Leary escape line, which smuggled Allied airmen shot down over France back to England. Nancy's job, courier. She transported messages, money, and escapees across checkpoints. It was incredibly dangerous. But Nancy had advantages. She spoke fluent French with a Marseille accent. She looked innocent, a wealthy socialite who wouldn't possibly be involved in resistance work. And she was brilliant at bluffing. Between 1940 and 1943, Nancy helped smuggle over 1,000 Allied servicemen to safety. But the Gestapo was closing in. They didn't know her real name, didn't know what she looked like. But they knew someone was helping pilots escape. They called her the White Mouse because she kept slipping through their traps. They tapped her phone, intercepted her mail, followed her. Nancy evaded them 6 times. Once, at a checkpoint, a German officer examined her papers, asked where she was going. Nancy smiled and flirted, distracted him. He waved her through. Inside her handbag, £200,000 in cash for the resistance, about $10 million today, and forged identity documents. By late 1943, it was too dangerous to stay. The Gestapo had arrested dozens of people connected to the escape line. Nancy's husband Henry urged her to flee to England. She didn't want to leave him, but Henry insisted. "If they catch you, they'll torture you. I can't watch that." Nancy crossed the Pyrenees Mountains into Spain on foot. A brutal 6-day trek, then to England. She arrived in London in June 1943. She tried to return to France immediately to be with Henry. The Special Operations Executive, Britain's spy agency, recruited her instead. SOE training was brutal: hand-to-hand combat, weapons, explosives, parachuting, radio operation, codes, survival techniques, how to kill silently. Nancy excelled. She could outshoot most of the men, could drink them under the table too, which earned their respect. The instructors called her one of the best students they'd trained. On April 29, 1944, Nancy parachuted back into France. Her parachute tangled in a tree. A French resistance leader named Henry Tardivat found her. He looked up and said, "I hope all the trees in France bear such beautiful fruit this year." Nancy's response: "Cut out that bullshit and get me out of this tree." Her mission: prepare the Maquis French resistance fighters for D-Day, coordinate weapon drops, train fighters, cause maximum chaos for the Germans. Initially, the Maquis didn't want to work with her. They wanted money and weapons, didn't want to take orders from a woman. Nancy called a meeting. The Maquis leaders showed up. Nancy sat down and proceeded to outdrink every single one of them. Bottle after bottle. The Frenchmen were impressed. She could hold her liquor better than they could. Then she told them bluntly, "I control the money, I control the weapons. You'll get both when you prove you're disciplined and effective, not before." It worked. Within weeks, Nancy commanded over 7,500 resistance fighters across the Auvergne region. No other SOE agent commanded that many. Her sector became the most effective in all of France. They sabotaged railways, blew up bridges, ambushed German convoys, attacked communication lines. The Germans sent thousands of troops to suppress them. It didn't work. Nancy's fighters were too mobile, too unpredictable, too well-armed thanks to British weapon drops. Then came June 1944. A massive German force, thousands of soldiers with tanks and artillery, attacked the Maquis base. The battle lasted days. The Maquis took heavy casualties and had to retreat. Worse, during the chaos, Nancy's radio operator had to destroy his radio and codes to prevent capture. Now they had no way to communicate with London, no way to request more weapons, no way to coordinate. This was a disaster. Nancy had one option: find another radio operator in another sector and send a message to London requesting replacement codes and equipment. The nearest radio operator was 500 kilometers away, through German-occupied territory, with checkpoints everywhere. Nancy made a decision. She'd go herself on a bicycle. She left at dawn, cycled through the day, through the night, through the next day, 72 hours, 500 kilometers, over mountains, through forests, past German patrols. She reached the radio operator, sent the message to London, got confirmation, then cycled back. By the time she returned, her hands were blistered and bleeding. Her legs could barely move, but she'd done it. The codes arrived within days. Her fighters loved her, called her the biggest bastard among all the bastards. It was a compliment. She led from the front, never asked them to do anything she wouldn't do herself. During one ambush, Nancy personally led a section of 10 men after their leader panicked. She gave the orders, controlled the fire, withdrew them safely. An SOE report later stated, "Her action definitely contributed to the safety of these 2 American officers who were very new to the work and rather lost." Then there was the incident nobody talks about much. A German sentry surprised Nancy during a night operation. She couldn't use her gun. The noise would alert others. She used her hands instead. The SOE had trained her in unarmed combat, silent killing. Nancy killed the German with her bare hands. She later described it matter-of-factly. "They taught me to kill. I killed. That's war. No emotion, no regret, just cold practicality." The The Montluçon raid in June 1944 was her most audacious operation. 30 seconds, 38 Germans dead. Perfect execution. After D-Day, Nancy's forces intensified operations. More sabotage, more ambushes, more chaos. They tied down thousands of German troops who should have been reinforcing Normandy. The Wehrmacht couldn't move freely through the Auvergne. Every road was dangerous. Every bridge a potential target. Nancy Wake's sector caused more problems for the Germans than any other region in France. Then came tragedy. In October 1944, Nancy received devastating news. Her husband, Henry, had been arrested by the Gestapo in 1943. They'd tortured him for months, trying to get him to reveal Nancy's location. Henry never talked, never betrayed her. The Gestapo executed him. Nancy didn't learn this until after France was liberated. She was devastated. The man who'd urged her to escape, who'd stayed behind, who'd died protecting her. Henry Fiacre gave his life so Nancy Wake could continue fighting. The war ended in May 1945. Nancy returned to England, tried to rebuild her life. The SOE demobilized. Nancy worked briefly for British intelligence, then tried politics, ran for Australian Parliament twice in the 1950s, lost both times, moved back to England, married an RAF officer named John Forward. He died in 1997. Nancy never remarried. She spent her later years mostly alone, giving occasional interviews, attending veteran reunions, telling her story to anyone who'd listen. The medals came, many medals from multiple countries, the George Medal from Britain, the Medal of Freedom from the United States, the Légion d'honneur from France, first as knight, later promoted to officer, the Croix de Guerre 3 times, the Médaille de la Résistance, the Companion of the Order of Australia. Nancy Wake became one of the most decorated servicewomen in history. She was the most decorated woman on the Allied side in WW2. In interviews, Nancy was blunt, unapologetic. When asked if she regretted killing Germans, she said, "Not in the least. I killed a lot of Germans, and I am only sorry I didn't kill more." When asked about being called the White Mouse, she laughed, "I thought it was rather a nice name, much better than the other things they called me." When asked about the 500-kilometer bicycle ride, she shrugged, "It was necessary, so I did it. What else was I supposed to do?" Nancy Wake died August 7, 2011 in London. She was 98 years old. In accordance with her wishes, her ashes were scattered in the hills of Auvergne, the region she'd defended 67 years earlier, the place where she'd commanded 7,500 fighters, the place where she'd become a legend. French veterans attended the ceremony. They stood at attention, saluted, remembered the woman who'd fought beside them, the woman who'd cycled 500 kilometers when they needed her, the woman who'd killed Germans and didn't apologize for it. So what's the lesson here? What do we take from Nancy Wake's story? Maybe it's that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's necessary despite the fear. Nancy was terrified many times. She admitted it. But she never let fear stop her. When her radio operator lost his codes, she cycled 500 kilometers. When a German surprised her, she killed him. When the Gestapo hunted her, she escaped. Again and again, she did what was necessary. That's not superhuman. That's just refusing to quit. Or maybe the lesson is simpler. Sometimes the most ordinary people, journalists, socialites, housewives, become extraordinary when circumstances demand it. Nancy Wake wasn't a soldier, wasn't trained for war. She was a journalist who interviewed Hitler and decided she couldn't stand by and do nothing. And that decision, that simple choice to resist, made her the most wanted Allied agent in France, made her command 7,500 fighters, made her a legend. 1944 Montluçon, France, 12:25 p.m. 4 cars, 30 seconds, 38 Germans dead, and Nancy Wake, the White Mouse, disappearing again. If this story amazed you, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment. Have you heard of Nancy Wake before? Thanks for watching.